Okay, right. All right. Okay, we are on. Okay, welcome everybody. If you're joining me here live, please let me know. Give me a heart or a thumbs up. If you're watching the replay, do a hashtag replay, and let's get into it. So this is a very, very important topic, if not one of the most important factors to get a hold of in terms of keeping your hormones balanced and preventing chronic disease. All of these chronic diseases that are impacted by an imbalance of the endocrine system, as well as the nervous system, as well as the immune system. Okay, so they are the three major systems that are impacted. My eyes aren't working today. I'm just going to put these back on. That are impacted by environmental toxins, which are in fact reaching epidemic proportions, unfortunately. And look, a lot of the research that I've seen is a little bit dated, and they were already way out of control. So this is very, very important to have a level of awareness that goes beyond your original idea or ideology or belief around living holistically, in terms of your dietary aspects, in terms of your lifestyle, and in terms of sleep, stress management, mindset, all the things which are so incredibly important. I'm not discounting that, but we need to now go beyond that even further if we're going to live to a ripe old age without any major impacts on our body. And of course, it's not going to be the same for everyone, because it depends on environment, where you actually live, whether you live in the city, whether you live in the country, whether you had chronic exposure over a finite period of time, or whether you still have that exposure, whether you had some acute exposure in a particular job that you may have, had, or as a child, during your childhood years, your parents as well, like before you were even born, because it can get passed down. So there are so many areas to look at, and the purpose of today isn't to cause alarm. I don't want to cause alarm. There's enough alarm in the world. It's not to cause alarm. It's just to create a level of awareness, to deepen your understanding around where different types of environmental toxins can turn up and show up in your life, so that you can then be better equipped to make better choices with what you choose to put in your body, as well as where you decide to inhabit, and just having some awareness, because there's a lot of areas that we do have control over, which is fantastic in terms of what we purchase, what we buy, the way we create our home. Because let's face it, most of these environmental toxins are actually indoors. don't get me wrong, there's a lot outdoors too. We're getting a double-edged sword here, but there's a lot indoors because they emit from different furnishings, fabrics, lots of things within the actual household. Okay, so let's get into it. So thank you for joining me. Just let me know that you're here because I can't see the comments, and I'd love to know who's joining me today for this very important topic that I'm extremely passionate about. So just to give a bit of an overview, this is such a broad area and it deserves a whole series on its own, or at the very least it deserves a whole masterclass. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is just doing a little bit of an overview of where these different environmental toxins come from, how they accrue in our body and impact our systems. And then I'm going to specifically focus in on some areas that we can modify to allow us to maintain good health and hopefully not be impacted by these. There are some tests that we can do as well if you had a specific area which you're concerned about in your past life or even current life. There are some tests that we can do for some of these toxins as well. And then I'm going to just focus more in on endocrine system in terms of the impact on thyroid as well as diabetes and levels of obesity, which are at alarming rates in the world, because all of those disease impacts kind of link in, and then the autoimmunity as well. Okay, so right, environmental toxic load, unfortunately, since the 20th century, so obviously for quite some time, I suppose since the Industrial Revolution, there's been a level of chemical sensitivity that has been multiplied in individuals, because we don't just have one or two chemicals, we have thousands of chemicals. Okay, so they turn up in the air, in the water, in the furnishings that we buy, in the foods, and it's really ubiquitous. And unfortunately, the body, we can't evolve quick enough. Our body is confused. It's not understanding. It's not keeping up with this level of toxicity, because of this overexposure of all of these contaminants. It's very confusing to our poor little body, So hence there are alarming proportions of increased asthma, allergy, autism, ADHD, childhood brain tumours as well as on the rise, obesity and type 2 diabetes. Just looking at my notes so I don't miss anything. And the main systems are the neurons, so your neurotoxicity, so your brain and your nervous system. Also, so hence impacts such as short-term memory, headache, cognitive function and mood, as well as the other system is the immune system. So just creating havoc within the immune system, causing confusion, so hence autoimmunity. And I'll explain a little bit about how that process happens later on so that you can get a grasp on why these environmental toxins impact the immune system in such a way to cause an autoimmune issue, which, may I add, is why with autoimmunity, it happens over decades, because this type of thing, we don't just get exposed and, we've got a problem. It's the body's accrual of all of these substances, right? And it's about the body burden. So we can do things on a daily basis to help reduce that body burden of toxins. And that's really, really important to know. And so what we choose to do will help us move through with this level of body burden. And then the other major system, of course, is the endocrine system, which I will be talking about. So that's talking about obesity, type 2. So give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm talking about thus far. I'm talking about disease correlation with environmental toxic load, okay, in isolation of all the other things that we do, Okay, so just to give you a bit of an overview of what these toxins are and where they come from, okay? So we've got the organic organophosphorus pesticides. So all the different types of pesticides that are used to grow our food, okay? So, and may I also add some labels, and give me a thumbs up if you have seen this. Some labels on things, they say organic, but they're not actually certified organic. So at what level of organic are those foods? So that's what brings me to this next point, just on this right now. It is up to us as individuals to ask the questions. As individuals, you know, we can't rely, I don't believe we're living in a world where we can rely on government or any type of overarching body to actually guide us in and help us make our choices. We need to have the due diligence to do research and actually find out. So, for example, if someone at the farmer's market has an organic product, but it's not certified organic, this is what that tells me. It tells me that this small business possibly didn't have the extortionate funds to actually afford the certification and all the testing that goes along with that whole certification stamp. Or it tells me that possibly on a moral level, this farmer has an organic product, but how do I really know? So we need to ask the questions. And when you're face to face with someone, you can tell, because that just goes back to what I've been talking about in several of my previous lives, is we have this sixth sense, we have this gut instinct, we have this level of intuition where we can read body language, right? So you can tell whether they're fumbling through or whether they're very, concrete in the information that they're giving to you, yeah? Because at the end of the day, how do we really know how a product is being grown, even something that is certified organic? Because they don't test them, they don't come out and test every batch. So, yeah, so really the source of food is equally as important as the freshness. Of course, we want it to be fresh, but the source of it. And also, and I'll get to this in a moment, whether it's been plastic wrapped, because plasticizers actually reside in body tissues because they have a very strong affinity for fat. And of course, we have fat in our body. Going off track, but I'm just going to follow this line at the moment because it's really important. So one of the food products that had the highest level of plasticizers was cheese in some testing that's been done. Okay, so how many of us eat cheese? I mean, if you're working with me at the moment, you're probably not, because we tend to steer off the inflammatory foods. But other than that, how many of us eat cheese? So if you don't want to go without your cheese, there are little things you can do, right? Who here likes cheese? Give me a heart. Who here likes cheese? So there are things that we can do. First, stay clear of the sliced cheese, because why? Sliced cheese is going to have more contact with plastic wrap, isn't it? All right. So you could get the block cheese, or you could get it from the deli. So if you get it from the deli, unsliced, it's been probably packaged in a different way. And if it has been plastic wrapped, you're probably down the slices where it's no longer been exposed to that plastic. So there are ways around it. So this is why knowledge is power, and then you apply that knowledge, and that's great for you, yeah? So that's just one little example. Here's another example of a commonly eaten food is milk. So milk comes in a plastic container. We can also get it in glass. You see a few supply companies that are very ethical that have it in a glass container, or you could have it in one of those, those cartons, the cartons, but then they've got the inner lining we've got to be concerned about as well. So Yeah, as you can probably see from what I'm saying thus far, plastic, and that's just one. That's just plasticizers. So, okay, let me go back to my list. Right, so we've also got the the heavy metals, including lead and mercury. So mercury, let me just talk about mercury for a little bit. Unfortunately, our oceans, despite they may look clean, they are full of plastics, but also the fish is full of mercury. So one thing that has been tested is farmed fish has 4 to 5 times. This is a small study that was done in Ireland, but farmed salmon has 4 to 5 times higher level of mercury than your wild caught Alaskan salmon. Now, here's another point. If you're buying Alaskan salmon, some really, really great, I think, breeds or types of Alaskan salmon are Chinook and Soho and Sockage, Sockage. That is the type of Alaskan salmon. Otherwise, it's probably just, if it just says Alaskan, it's probably just your general typical farmed. Now, if you have a mercury level in your issue in your body, which you may not know, or you may know, and we'll get to that because there are ways of testing all of these types of heavy metals amongst other toxins. If you have that in your body, that would be something to steer clear of, because when I first studied, let me just double back. When I first started studying as a naturopath, it was like, oh yeah, we need to have, fish 3 to 4 times a week, for our cell membrane health. And I, to a degree, I advocate that, but I'm advocating that less these days because of the amount of mercury and other heavy metals, and that can cause. It all comes down to risk benefit ratio. Everyone understands that risk benefit ratio. Give me a thumbs up if you understand the risk benefit ratio, because to have all or nothing, there's always going to be some level of risk and some level of benefit. So we need to understand what that means for us, for our individual health picture, and what we're trying to achieve by buying this, that, and the other. So, for example, are we buying the salmon because, we've read that fish is good? You might have read it in the latest healthy magazine. Well-being magazine. Oh, fish is good. You love fish. Do they talk about the type of fish? Do they talk about where it is sourced, how it is produced? Yeah, I talked a little bit about this in a few lives, another topic. For example, tassel salmon in Australia is that farm fish, they feed them grain. It's really poor quality. They're very, very poor quality fish. So apart from heavy metals and all the rest of it, you wouldn't want to touch that with a barge pole because of other reasons. Yeah, and then there's quality, freshness. Yeah, so as a naturopath, the one supplement that I'm tending to focus a little bit more on these days is fish oil, ones that have been actually cleaned and, gone through all the processes of filtration and purification. So the oil, the omega-3 oil is really clean, okay? Apart from that, I don't tend to supplement unless we need it as a bridge between getting from A to B, and then ideally dietary and lifestyle carries on, yeah? All right, so let me, again, I've gone off on that tangent, getting back to my list. And then we've got the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So that's the PAHs, PAHs, that you may see, the acrylamides, the water disinfection. So that's trihalomethanes. So that's our water supply. And in the the copy for my topic today, I did list a study that I read only recently, 2022, very, very recent. The level of PFSs or PSFs in the water is reaching toxic levels. Now, when you actually go through to read that study, if you want the link, just write link. Just write link and I will send you the link to this study. It's quite easy to read. And it was from an environmental journal. This particular study showed alarming proportions of these chemical substances which cause cancer and all other issues in the body, right? So one of the reasons why they're reaching the level is at high proportions is because the governmental agencies have actually lowered the threshold at which these are deemed safe. Now that tells me two things. One, how long was it at a level where it was unsafe? Okay, and what is there any agenda for bringing that level down? Like, how do we really know? So there's more research to be done there, which brings me back to that other point. As sovereign individuals, we really need to do our due diligence for our health and wellness. And I'm here to advocate for you. So I'm here to advocate for you. So if you're working with me, I'm gonna help you with that, because I tell you what, sometimes it's like looking for a needle in a haystack to figure out what is actually going on for you in terms of heavy metals, in terms of environmental toxins, and why you've got a particular issue. And specifically, I'll be talking about thyroid, Hashimoto's, or any other types of issues. Why has this happened to you as opposed to someone else? I believe environmental toxins play a bigger role than what has been anticipated. And unfortunately, the amount, there's just not enough, I think there's, especially China, unfortunately, you know, there's just so many toxins coming out. You know, with chemistry, they're creating new ways of do things, all the modern ways, you know, the microwave. Let's just talk about the microwave for a little bit. If anyone saw my post earlier this week, when it says microwave safe, what do most people think? This is the thing with marketing, right? Which really gets to me. What do people think when it says microwave safe? Tell me in the comments, please. What do you think of when it says microwave safe? Tell me if you think it means it's safe for you to eat that contents, because that's microwave safe. Yeah, give me a thumbs up. Let me know. Okay, so the thing is, it's safe for the container to be microwaved. There's no tests done on the impact of the food, but we know that with plastic wrap, going back to the plasticizers, heat will exacerbate or accelerate, I should say, the amount of these plasticizers that actually inhabit the food. Heat will exacerbate that. So will the length of time that it's in the plastic wrap. So two very important factors to understand. So if something, when you go and buy your bacon that's in a plastic wrap, how long has that been sitting there, apart from the nitrates, which is another chemical which a lot of people have intolerance to? How long has that been sitting there, and how much of the plasticizer is actually in the food there? Yeah. Okay, so also phthalates, triclosan. So triclosan, we've just been through a pandemic over the last 2 years. How many people have been wiping their hands, washing their hands on that antibacterial waterless stuff, right? That is triclosan. So triclosan, apart from it disturbing your microbiome, which paradoxically helps your immune system, which is pretty interesting right there. Triclosan is another chemical which we absorb and accrues and becomes a part of our body burden. All right. And then we've got benzophenones. So that's in your sunblock, which is why as an naturopath I recommend to get a zinc-based sun cream. Very, very important. Zinc-based sun cream, because so you put your sunblock on to reduce your risk of skin cancer. Guess what the benzophenone, this is why I've got my notes, because I can't remember all of these words. There's no possible way. The benzophenone is actually cancer causing. So there we go, right? So there's a, there we go. All right, so for fluorocarbons, so think of all your non-stick, so your non-stick cookware. So how many of us use the non-stick cookware, right? So I've got a combination. I'm gradually shifting over. I've got more stainless steel now, as opposed, and or other types of cookware, like your Corningware is really good. So there's other types of cookware other opposed than that, as opposed to your non-stick. So just think about that as well, because that breaks down into the food, right? So okay, so let's get to the food. So food with what you're buying. Think about that. Who here has heard of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15? Okay, so we've all got, you know, you can Google it, you know, depending on the area that you live in, what's in season. There's the Dirty Dozen, which is the most highly sprayed foods, and the Clean 15. So what I highly recommend, if you're thinking about moving over to organic, just write organic in the comments, or let me know if you are organic. Let me know. I can't actually see the comments. I'm just going to open my phone. Let me know if you are organic. You might be partially organic. You know, you might be, whoops, here we go. Whoops, here we go. Whoops, sorry, just trying to get on there. So just type organic if you're 100% organic, or let me know, are you partially organic? What's going on there for you? Because there are ways around it. Because if you understand the Clean 15, that would be the choice of food that you buy that's conventional, okay, if there's a budgeting issue, or the Dirty Dozen, that's what I would highly recommend, to go 100% organic, or grow your own. Like I grow my cabbages, I don't spray them, of course I don't have any sprays, of course, as if I'd have sprays, I'm a naturopath, but every morning I would go and just pick off the caterpillars, and actually then I felt sorry for the caterpillars, so I'd put them on another leaf somewhere else in the garden, you know. But anyway, that's just a weird thing that I've got there going on. But yeah, like I just picked them off, and my cabbages were perfect. You know, I had like half a dozen cabbages growing. So if you've got a huge farm, that one might be really labor intensive. But anyway, when you grow your own food, you can do that because it's not that difficult, because you've just got your own veggie patch, right? So you can actually, there's ways, and you can really get into permaculture too. So that's a whole nother level, you know, and do your composting and all that. So that's awesome. That's when you really understand exactly what's going into your foods. That would be if you've got the opportunity, or if you've got the space, even if you've got a balcony, you can research ways that you can grow food on your balcony. There are many different ways. If anyone would like some resources, just type resources, and I can send you some information about growing your own food in small confined spaces, because that's another thing that we need to be aware of and careful of is, you know, if you're growing food in the inner city, you just need to be aware of chemicals. One of the main ones in there would be lead, coming from all the cars and everything like that. So lead is a huge issue as a heavy metal, right? Okay, so I think I've gone on about that. Yeah, I went on the tangent, talked about that. Okay, let's get into the autoimmunity and immune side issues, right? So what happens is some of the chemicals, for example, the volatile organic compounds and the formaldehyde. So formaldehyde is what keeps our fabrics, you know, like it's on all our like lounge chairs and stuff like that, and on our clothes, and you know, we've got phthalates and all those other types of chemicals. What happens is some of these chemicals are very similar in chemical structure to tissues in our body. So what happens is, for autoimmunity, as an example, what happens is, so firstly, they've got a low molecular weight, which means that they're really small particles. So they slip through, and they combine onto tissue, and our body identifies that. It sort of kind of produces a new antigen, and our body sees that and thinks, oh, okay, here's a problem. Here's a problem. So the body then attacks this compound, right? Which is fine. That's what the immune system is supposed to do. But then, because this is a similar in structure to other areas of the immune system is confused, and it will then go on to attack other tissues in the body. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know if this makes sense. So for example, let's say we've got the thyroid hormone, thyroxine. So thyroxine attached to iodine is very similar in structure to some of these chemicals. So what happens is the immune system actually attacks or blocks, I should say, the protein that enables the thyroid hormone to work. Okay, so that's with hypothyroidism. So hypothyroidism is one of these, and it's because of this. It's not necessarily the proximity of where the thyroid is. It's because of the chemical structure of the hormones that is produced by the thyroid, and the similarity between those and some of these chemicals once they come into the body. So you can see how easily it would be for our immune system to be confused by this. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that when we're ingesting? So some of the typical chemicals that impact thyroid directly via this mechanism are chlorine. So where's chlorine? It's in our water supply. It's also in chlorinated pools. I do swim in a pool. You know, I try to limit it. In summer, I virtually never go. And I try to limit my exposure, and I up my vitamin C because that helps with exposure to chlorine, right? So, and other areas that confuse the body is the intestine. We've got brush border enzymes in the intestinal membrane, which help our immune system, and that's another area that can get confused, as well as neurons, so our brain, and myelin sheath, which is the fat soluble part of the brain. So there are many areas that can be impacted by the autoimmune, I suppose, generation of the impact of these types of chemicals. Yeah. Hypothyroid health, think pesticides, organophosphates. So think pesticides and PCBs. So PCBs are like your chlorine molecules, as I explained. Also, all your plastics. So, for example, BPA. Now, how many people go BPA free? Let me know. Even if you're watching the replay here, just type in the comments, yes, BPA free. The thing is what makes the plastic? We've got to then question what makes the plastic. So if it's BPA free, what is it that's making the plastic? It's either BPS or BPF. Now, BPS and BPF are arguably more toxic than BPA, but way less studied. So this is another thing which brings me back to the point of your due diligence and not just taking, taking what anyone says. Because when it suddenly became known that, BPA is toxic, it's almost like there was a marketing bandwagon of, BPA free, BPA free, BPA free. But does that mean that all plastic that's BPA free is safe? No, it just means it's BPA free. It means it's safe from BPA. Okay, so glass is always the best. Second to that is your stainless steel, but unfortunately we do absorb stainless steel as well. So be careful of kettles. Be careful of the plastic in kettles as well. If you're making cups of tea and all of that type of thing, it's really, really difficult to get like glass canister. But yeah, it's just, really, really important. Okay, so quite a lot to think about. So if you would like some more information about how these environmental toxins may be impacting your body, okay, just write toxic free and we can drill down and work out, well, we can have a conversation. We can just have an initial conversation to work out whether there could be an impact. Because if you're the type of person that are doing all the things you're doing, you've got the lifestyle, awesome, you've got the diet and all of that's going on, but you still have negative impacts, because I'm telling you, we all have negative impacts. It's about body burden, so toxic load. Yeah, it's about toxic load. And for example, if you're doing some day-to-day practices that help reduce that body burden or toxic load, that's a great thing. That's going to help you help prevent chronic diseases. So it's not all doom and gloom. Unfortunately, we've got these toxins on the planet. Some of them are called, like in this study that I was talking about with the rainwater that was done, some of them are called forever toxins, which means that they just don't break down. They haven't got a half-life. They haven't got a time. It's just like they will probably eventually break down, you would hope. But if, you know, something's not going to break down, then we need to be also aware, you know, especially these toxins that have an affinity for fat. What happens is when we ingest them, our body very cleverly, because honestly, we have such an intelligent organism. Oh, I'm so grateful for the human body. We, you know, there is a level of intelligence that goes beyond all this. Our body understands, and our body knows that the safest place to put that environmental toxin is in the fat or in the bone. Yeah. So then we need to be aware of, well, when, as we age and our body, I'll just talk about bone to start with, as we age and our body starts to, you know, it's less efficient with digestion, or, you know, it's just less effective because, you know, that's part of aging, right? For example, or if, let's say, we've got too much tissue acidity, our body will do its thing and break down bone to, you know, bring in some more alkaline substances to help buffer, right? So if we've got heavy metals and toxins in the bone, so that's going to kind of release that. So we've got to be aware of that. The other thing is fat storage. If we're going on some sort of mad, you know, fly by the seat of your pants detox, like a juicing detox, I don't agree with juicing detoxes, and I'm going to explain the exact reason why right now. What happens is that releases the fats into your bloodstream, which could render your body more toxic, playing more havoc to your hormonal network than where it was safely stored in the fat. So when we detox, we need to have good amounts of protein, and ideally, if we're doing quite a strong, there's different levels of detox. Like in my program, we do a very low level. We do more like a lifestyle, you know, eating, and then we can have a higher level of detox maybe once or twice a year, or for a certain specific issue that's going on in your body. We have we can have what I call a higher level detox. It's like stronger, so it's less, more strict on the food and what we're taking in, and also more strict on, when I say strict, more supportive of our organs to actually detoxify. Yeah, so with any type of quick fix fast, you may lose the weight, but you actually may feel really unwell. You might be getting a lot of headaches. You might feel nauseous. You might feel dizzy. You know, there are a lot of different signs, and, you know, it's really, you know, it's important to be aware of those and have a structure in place that you're actually ameliorating those symptoms. And because when we detoxify, we want we've got phase 1 liver detoxification, and then we've got phase 2. So we want to make sure that our phase 2 is working really, really well. And then we want to make sure our gut is working well so that they're safely removed from the body. So otherwise, it's just going to be reabsorbed with the enteric circulation through the blood, reabsorbed back into our body, and that's not going to do us any good. So all of these systems need to be supported. All right. So this is going to bring me to the number one strategy that you can do. I've left this to the very end. The number one strategy that you can do to help prevent toxic body burden, okay, is avoidance. Avoidance. Now, you can only avoid the toxin if you know where it is. So at this point, if you're looking to avoid toxins so that you actually can decrease your body burden of toxins, I would like you to type avoidance. Okay, I would like you to type avoidance in the chat, and I will personally reach out to you and explain, and we'll go through to see if that's something that I can work with you on. There might be an area that we need to do some testing. We may need to totally change up the way you do things in your life in terms of your diet, in terms of your lifestyle. But if you're suffering from symptoms of fatigue or weight gain, or hormonal issues like thyroid hormonal issues, like insomnia, even insomnia is a big one as well. Yeah, if cortisol and melatonin are kind of skewed. Yeah, so if you're suffering with any symptoms, depression, memory loss, short-term memory loss as well, mood disturbances. Sorry about my scratching. This is wool, and I have an issue with wool, but I like this jumper, so apologies there. Yeah, just write avoidance, and I will reach out to you and we'll have a chat, because this is something that is incredibly important, and it's not all doom and gloom. There's things that we can do on a day-to-day basis and for your lifetime as well, to help reduce the body burden of toxic load and help protect glands like your thyroid, like your brain as well, your pancreas in terms of endocrine system, also our nervous system, and also our gut health for immune system, and correct immune system orchestrator as well. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this live, and as you can see, I mean, this is just really just scratched the surface of this particular topic. Again, if you'd like the link to the study, just write link. If you'd like to reach out to me and we can have a conversation about how I may be able to help you re-imprint your way of doing things, just write avoidance, because that's the number one rule. The number one strategy is avoidance. Once it's in there, it's hard to get out. But there are other strategies we can do depending on what the toxin is to help up-level our body and our systems so that we can actually feel better in ourselves. Yeah. All right. So I hope you've enjoyed this live, and yeah, let's chat. All right. So that's it from me, and I look forward to connecting with you, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.